Everyone in the galaxy was terrified to approach this alien woman, except this human. The galactic concourse was never quiet. But there was one place where sound always faded. Ships arrived every minute, merchants spoke in dozens of languages, and diplomats argued behind polished glass walls. Yet in the center of the station, near the observation dome, there was an empty space no one ever crossed. At the heart of that space sat an alien woman. She did nothing threatening. She did not shout, move suddenly, or glow with power. She simply sat on a smooth metal bench, hands folded, posture calm. Her skin was a deep, soft violet like a night sky before dawn. Her eyes were large and reflective, silver with faint patterns moving slowly beneath the surface. Long, dark tendrils of hair-like structures fell down her back, unmoving. Still, no one came near her. The moment any non-human stepped too close, their bodies reacted before their minds could catch up. Breathing quickened, hearts raced, limbs trembled, some collapsed, others fled without knowing why. Even machines calibrated to read danger showed warnings when she was present, though they could never explain what the threat was. The galaxy had learned to stay away. Station authorities had tried everything at first: medical scans, psychic dampeners, environmental barriers. Nothing worked. The fear was not an attack, it was not aggression, it was simply there. A presence that pressed against the instincts of other species and told them in the deepest part of their minds to run. So they stopped trying. They gave her a bench, a distance marker, and a silent agreement. She would be allowed to exist as long as she was alone. Her name was Sithra of the Kellen, though almost no one remembered that. To most of the galaxy, she was just that one. The woman no one approached. The reason the concourse curved slightly around an empty space. Sithra watched the stars through the dome, pretending she did not notice the way others avoided looking at her. She had learned that pretending was easier than hoping. Hope hurt more when it failed. She had been sitting there for 3 cycles. She did not count the days anymore. Around her, life moved on. Beings laughed, argued, traded, lived, always just far enough away, always careful not to cross the invisible line. She wondered, not for the first time, what it felt like to be spoken to without fear. On the opposite side of the concourse, a human stepped off a shuttle. Elia's rook paused as the station lights adjusted to his arrival. He was tall by human standards, with dark hair pulled back loosely and a jacket that showed signs of long travel. He carried no visible weapons, just a data pad under one arm and a small bag over his shoulder. This was his first time on the concourse, but he had studied it for years. Humanity had only joined galactic politics recently, and Elias had been chosen as a junior cultural envoy. Mostly paperwork, mostly observation. He was supposed to watch, learn, and avoid mistakes. As he walked forward, he felt the strange shift in atmosphere. It was subtle but noticeable. Conversations dipped. Movement changed. People angled away from something he could not yet see. He followed their gaze. At first, he thought the space was empty. Then he noticed the bench. Then the woman. Elias slowed, curiosity rising. He checked his data pad automatically, but it showed no alerts. No warnings, no danger signs. Yet every alien around him was tense, their bodies angled away as if avoiding fire. A nearby trader, a tall insect-like being, noticed where Elias was looking and stiffened. "No," the trader clicked sharply, one eye swiveling toward him. "Human, do not." "Do not what?" Elias asked. The trader's mandibles tightened. "Approach, look, engage." "That one is forbidden." Elias frowned slightly. "Forbidden why?" The trader did not answer. Instead, it stepped back, increasing the distance between itself and both Elias and the woman. Elias looked again at the alien seated alone. She had not moved. Her gaze remained on the stars, her expression unreadable but quiet. "She doesn't look dangerous," Elias said. The trader made a sound that might have been laughter if laughter was afraid. "Looks are irrelevant." Elias hesitated. He had been trained to respect local customs, to observe before acting, but something about the situation felt wrong in a way rules could not explain. Everyone else avoided her because they were afraid. But afraid of what? He checked his body for signs of fear. His heart rate was normal, his breathing steady. No instinct screamed at him to run. There was only a mild pressure in the air, like standing near a strong magnet, noticeable but not painful. He took a step forward. Alarms did not sound, but reactions rippled. A nearby delegation pulled back abruptly. A station guard raised a hand, then stopped, unsure. Whispers spread like static. Elias took another step. The invisible boundary broke. Sithra noticed the change immediately. She did not turn her head, but her senses sharpened. Something was different. The pressure of fear around her shifted as if a current had changed direction. Someone was close, closer than anyone had been in a very long time. She slowly turned her head. The human stood a few steps away, hands relaxed at his sides, his face open and calm. His eyes met hers without flinching. He was not afraid. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Sithra searched his posture, his breathing, his gaze, expecting the signs she had learned so well. The tension, the panic, the barely hidden urge to flee. There was nothing. Elias felt it then more clearly. The pressure was stronger up close, a strange, emotional weight pressing against his thoughts. It was uncomfortable, like standing near a loud noise you could not hear, but it did not scare him. It only made him more aware. "Hello," he said gently in standard trade speech. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." The concourse might as well have stopped existing. Sithra's mind froze. No one had spoken to her like that in centuries. Not with calm, not with courtesy, not without fear woven into every word. "You," her voice was soft, layered with a faint echo. "You should not be here." Elias smiled slightly, not mocking, just warm. "People keep telling me that, but no one explains why." Her eyes narrowed, confused. "You do not feel it." "I feel something," he admitted. "But not what they seem to feel." Around them, station staff prepared emergency protocols that never came. Observers began recording without authorization. No one intervened. Sithra studied him carefully. "My presence causes fear, instinctual, involuntary. It is how my species survived. It is not something I can turn off." Elias nodded slowly. "That explains their reaction, not their behavior." She looked away, back toward the stars. "Fear has always been enough." He took a careful step closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "For some species, yes. Humans, we grew up afraid of everything. Predators, darkness, each other. If fear was enough to stop us, we wouldn't be here." She turned back to him, truly looking now. "You are unusual." "Occupational hazard," Elias said lightly. Silence settled between them, not heavy but uncertain. For the first time in a very long while, Sithra did not feel like an object to be avoided. She felt seen. "What is your name?" Elias asked. She hesitated. Names were dangerous things. Names invited memory. "Sithra." "It's good to meet you, Sithra. I'm Elias." The simple exchange sent a ripple through the watching crowd. Names were personal. Names meant acknowledgement. "You should leave," she said, not unkindly. "They will not like this." Elias glanced around at the distant figures, then back at her. "They don't have to like it right now." For the first time in centuries, Sithra felt something other than isolation settle in her chest. Curiosity. Elias did not leave after that first conversation. He should have. Every protocol said he should have. But he stayed where he was, standing near Sithra as if it were the most normal thing in the galaxy. Around them, the concourse slowly began to breathe again. Not normally, not comfortably, but enough that movement returned. Aliens watched from a distance, pretending to be busy while their attention stayed locked on the impossible sight of a human standing inside the forbidden space. Sithra felt it all. The fear, the confusion, the disbelief. It pressed against her senses like a storm she had lived inside her entire life. But now there was something else mixed into it. A quiet point of stillness, the human. "You really should go," she said again, more softly this time. "They will report this." "There will be consequences." Elias shrugged lightly. "There are always consequences. Sometimes they're worth it." She did not understand that answer, but she did not reject it either. Instead, she shifted slightly on the bench, making room without thinking. The motion surprised them both. Elias noticed and smiled, then carefully sat down, leaving a respectful distance between them. He did not touch her. He did not lean too close. He simply sat, facing the stars as she did. For Sithra, the sensation was overwhelming. Another being beside her, not running, not shaking, not filled with silent panic. "You are truly unaffected," she said almost to herself. "Not unaffected," Elias replied. "Just used to handling fear. Humans don't always run from it. Sometimes we sit with it until it stops screaming." She turned her head slowly. "That sounds painful," he nodded. "It can be, but it also teaches you that fear isn't always the truth." That idea settled deep inside her, strange and unsettling. Her entire existence had been defined by the fear she caused. To hear someone speak of fear as something that could be questioned felt almost dangerous. A group of station guards stood at the edge of the invisible boundary. They argued quietly among themselves, their voices tight. One of them, a tall reptilian being with decorated armor, finally stepped forward just enough to be heard. "Human," the guard called out, "you are interfering with a restricted entity." Elias looked up calmly. "She has a name," the guard hesitated. "This being has been classified for public safety." Sithra lowered her gaze. She had heard these words before, many times. They always ended the same way. Elias stood slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. "With respect, she is sitting on a bench, not attacking anyone. The only danger here seems to be unmanaged fear." The guard's frill flared slightly. "Your species does not understand the risk." Elias tilted his head. "Then explain it to me." The guard opened his mouth, then closed it. Data existed, records existed, but explanations always ended at the same place, instinctive terror with no measurable cause. "She cannot help what she is," the guard said finally. "Neither can anyone else," Elias replied. "That's usually when understanding matters most." Silence followed. The guard did not advance, could not. His body would not allow it. After a tense moment, he stepped back. "This will be reported," he said. "I hope so," Elias answered. When the guards withdrew, Sithra let out a slow breath she had not realized she was holding. "You did not have to do that," she said. "I wanted to," Elias replied simply. They sat again. Time passed in a way that felt unfamiliar to Sithra. It was not empty time. It was filled with small things. Elias pointing out a distant nebula he recognized from human star charts. Sithra explaining how her people navigated by instinct rather than instruments. Words flowed carefully at first, then more easily. She learned that humans came from a world filled with predators, unstable weather, and constant change. That fear had been a daily companion in their early history. That survival had required cooperation, curiosity, and sometimes stubborn defiance of instinct. He learned that the Kellen had evolved on a world where projecting fear was their greatest defense. Predators froze or fled before ever attacking. Over time, that ability grew stronger until it no longer turned off, until it defined them completely. "When we joined the wider galaxy," Sithra said quietly, "we believed we would be welcomed. Instead, we became a problem to be managed." Elias did not interrupt. "They tried to help at first," she continued. "Therapies, technology, isolation zones. But fear makes people impatient. Eventually, avoidance was easier." She looked down at her hands. "I volunteered to stay here to show that we could coexist, that we meant no harm. And instead, they used you as a warning," Elias said gently. She did not deny it. Hours passed. News spread, not loudly but persistently. A human was sitting with her. A human was talking. A human was not afraid. Scientists began reviewing old data. Cultural experts whispered among themselves. Something long accepted as unchangeable was being questioned. Eventually, Elias' communicator chimed softly. A message from human command. Short, concerned, careful. He read it, then sighed. "They want me to leave," he said honestly. Sithra's chest tightened, an old, familiar ache returning. "Of course they do." "I told them I would stay a little longer," he added. She looked up, surprised. "You defied them?" "Politely," he said with a small smile. "I explained that this is the most important cultural contact I've had." She studied his face, searching for deception. There was none. "Only sincerity. You risk much for a stranger," she said. Elias shook his head. "You're not a stranger anymore." That word echoed inside her, not stranger. As the station's artificial night cycle began, lights dimmed and traffic slowed. Still, Elias remained. And still, Sithra did not ask him to leave. For the first time in centuries, she allowed herself to imagine a different future. One where her presence did not mean isolation. One where fear was not the final answer. Far above the concourse, unseen by either of them, automated observation systems compiled reports. Patterns emerged. Human neurological responses differed significantly. Fear pathways activated but did not escalate. Where other species panicked, humans stabilized. A simple conclusion formed, quiet but powerful. Humans were not immune to fear. They were trained by it. By the next cycle, the galactic concourse no longer felt the same. The empty space around Sithra still existed, but it had changed. It was no longer only a place of fear. It was a place of attention. Observers watched from balconies. Scientists reviewed live feeds. Diplomats whispered behind layered glass, and at the center of it all sat Sithra with a human beside her. Elias had not slept much. Humans needed rest, but he chose short breaks rather than leaving completely. Each time he returned, Sithra felt a strange relief she did not yet have words for. "You look tired," she said softly. "I am," Elias admitted, "but some things are worth being tired for." That answer stayed with her long after he said it. Word had spread beyond the station. Messages crossed systems. The idea that a human could remain calm in the presence of a Kellen challenged centuries of accepted truth. Some called it impossible. Others called it dangerous. A few called it hopeful. The Galactic Council could not ignore it anymore. A formal request arrived before the second cycle ended. Sithra was summoned to provide testimony, not as a threat, not as a warning, but as a subject of discussion. She read the message in silence. Her hands trembled slightly. "They have never asked me to speak," she said, "only to exist quietly." Elias leaned forward. "This is different. They're asking because something changed. Or because they are afraid of losing control," she replied. "Both can be true," he said gently. The council chamber was not designed for beings like Sithra. It was wide and open, filled with delegates from dozens of species, each seated behind barriers and personal fields. The distance between them was symbolic as much as physical. As Sithra entered, fear rippled through the room, heart monitors spiked. Some delegates stiffened, others struggled to remain seated. A few activated emergency calming systems. Elias walked beside her. That alone caused confusion. Humans had been given permission to attend only as observers. Elias was pushing the limit simply by being present, but he did not step away. "Stay close," he said quietly. "You're not alone." She nodded, holding on to that thought like a fragile light. The council leader, an ancient avian being with silver feathers, spoke first. "Sithra of the Kellen, you have been invited to speak because recent events challenge long-standing conclusions." Sithra lifted her head. Her voice was steady, though it took effort. "I will answer honestly. Do you acknowledge that your presence causes involuntary fear responses in most sentient species?" the leader asked. "Yes," she said, "I always have. Do you deny that this fear has led to harm, panic, and disruption?" "No," she replied. "But I deny intent." A murmur moved through the chamber. The leader turned slightly. "Human Representative Elias Rook, you may speak." Elias stepped forward into the open space, ignoring the way several delegates flinched when he moved closer to Sithra. "Humans experience fear too," he said clearly. "We just don't treat it as a final decision. Our history is full of things that scared us. Oceans, fire, the night, each other. If fear had been enough to stop us, we would never have left our world." A reptilian delegate spoke sharply. "Your species is reckless. Fear exists for a reason." Elias nodded. "It does to warn us, not to control us." Sithra watched the room carefully. She saw disbelief, resistance, but she also saw something new, curiosity. The council leader folded their wings. "Sithra, tell us of your people before isolation." Her breath caught. No one had asked that in generations. "We were explorers," she said slowly. "We mapped unstable regions of space. We walked worlds others could not. Our presence kept predators away. We believed it made us valuable." She paused. "But fear does not feel valuable when you are on the receiving end of it." Images appeared above the chamber, old records, Kellen envoys standing proudly beside other species. Then slowly those images faded into empty spaces where they had been removed. "Our exclusion was quiet," she continued. "No war, no accusations, just distance, fewer invitations, closed doors, until silence replaced conversation." The room was still. Elias spoke again. "Humans notice something important. The fear response is biological, not moral, and biology can be adapted to." A scientist delegate leaned forward. "Explain." "Humans don't suppress fear," Elias said. "We process it, we train for it, we build systems around it. That's why Sithra doesn't overwhelm us. Our minds don't escalate the signal." Data displays activated, neural patterns, comparative charts. The scientist's eyes widened. "Your species has an unusually high tolerance threshold." "We had to," Elias replied simply. The council leader was silent for a long moment. Then they spoke. "If humans can adapt, can others?" Elias did not hesitate. "With time, with technology, with willingness." Fear moved through the chamber again, but this time it was different. It was not the fear of Sithra. It was the fear of change. A delegate stood abruptly. "This is dangerous thinking. The current system works." Sithra met their gaze. "It works for you." The words were not angry. They were tired. The council recessed shortly after. No decision was made. But no rejection was issued either. That in itself was unprecedented. Outside the chamber, Sithra felt weak. Elias noticed immediately and guided her to a quiet corridor. "You did well," he said. She shook her head slightly. "I told them my pain." "That does not guarantee change." "No," he agreed, "but it makes ignoring you harder." As they rested, messages poured in, from humans offering support, from scientists asking questions, even from a few non-human individuals expressing cautious interest. One message stood out. A young delegate from a minor species, simple, honest. "I am afraid of you, but I am more afraid of never understanding." Sithra stared at the words for a long time. Then she handed the pad to Elias. He smiled softly. "That's how it starts." She looked up at him. "Why are humans like this?" He considered the question. "Because we learned that fear doesn't disappear when you run from it. It just waits." The days after the council meeting felt heavier than before, not because nothing had changed, but because something had. The galaxy had noticed Sithra, and once something is seen, it can never fully be unseen. The concourse became crowded again, yet the space around Sithra was different. It was still wide, still careful, but no longer empty. Humans came first, a few at a time. Diplomats, scientists, engineers, they stayed at the edge at first, then slowly closer. None of them showed panic. Some felt discomfort, some tension, but they stayed. Other species watched from afar, confused and uneasy. Sithra found it difficult to sleep. Her mind was filled with thoughts she had never allowed herself to have. Possibility was far more exhausting than despair. Elias noticed the change in her. "You don't have to carry this alone," he said one evening as artificial stars dimmed overhead. She looked at him. "I have always carried it alone." "You don't have to anymore," he repeated. That simple statement felt more radical than anything said in the council chamber. Human researchers requested permission to begin voluntary exposure studies. No force, no pressure, just observation. A few brave non-human volunteers agreed, supported by human presence and calming technology. The first attempt lasted only minutes, but no one collapsed. No one fled screaming. That alone was considered a breakthrough. Not everyone was pleased. Several powerful species filed formal protests. They accused humanity of destabilizing galactic order, of ignoring established safety standards. They warned that fear existed for a reason, and that trying to overcome it was reckless. Behind closed doors, sanctions were discussed. Sithra learned of this through Elias. "They may punish your people for this," she said quietly. Elias sighed. "They might try." "Why continue then?" she asked. "Why risk so much?" He met her gaze. "Because if we stop now, the message will be clear." That fear gets the final word. That answer settled deep inside her. The first public integration demonstration was announced shortly after. A controlled environment, limited audience. Sithra would walk through a shared space accompanied by humans and monitored by medical teams. She stood at the entrance, hands clasped tightly. Fear radiated from her, unintentional and powerful. She felt it bounce back from the walls, magnified by anticipation. Elias stood beside her, so did three other humans. One placed a steadying hand on her arm, not touching skin, just close enough to remind her she was not alone. "Ready?" Elias asked. She took a breath. "As I will ever be." They stepped forward together. The room reacted instantly. Non-human observers tensed. Some clutched their seats, heart monitors spiked. But humans remained steady, their presence like anchors in rough water. Sithra focused on their calm. She did not try to suppress herself. She simply existed. Minutes passed, then something unexpected happened. The fear did not grow. It remained strong, but it did not spiral. The human presence absorbed the worst of it, interrupting the feedback loop that normally led to panic. A murmur spread through the room. Not fear, wonder. "This is impossible," someone whispered. "No," a human scientist replied quietly. "It's adaptation." News of the demonstration spread fast, faster than protests could contain it. Images of Sithra walking beside humans filled networks across the galaxy. Still, opposition hardened. A coalition of species issued an ultimatum. Humanity must cease involvement with the Kellen or face economic and political isolation. The message was delivered formally, cold and precise. Sithra read it in silence. "They are drawing a line," she said. Elias nodded. "They are. And if you cross it—" "We already have," he replied. Human leadership debated intensely. This was not a small matter. Trade routes, alliances, stability, all were at risk. In the end, humanity made a choice that surprised no one who truly understood them. They stood firm. A human ambassador addressed the council. We will not abandon someone simply because their existence makes others uncomfortable. If that costs a standing, then so be it. The reaction was immediate. Sanctions were enacted. Humans were barred from certain sectors. Cooperation slowed. Sithra felt the weight of it like a physical blow. "This is my fault," she said. Elias shook his head firmly. "No, this is the cost of change." Despite the pressure, humans did not retreat. Instead, they adapted. They built new partnerships. They shared research openly. They invited dialogue rather than confrontation. And slowly, cracks appeared in the opposition. A minor species requested a private meeting with Sithra. Then another, always with humans present, always cautious, but always moving forward. One day, a delegate who had once spoken harshly against her stood at the edge of her space. He did not cross it, but he stayed. "I am still afraid," he admitted. "That is understandable," Sithra replied. "But I am also ashamed," he said, "because you never harmed us and we treated you as if you had." The words shook her more than any fear response ever had. As weeks passed, the galaxy adjusted, slowly. Unevenly, but undeniably, the narrative changed from dangerous entity to challenging presence, from avoid at all costs to approach with care. Humans gained a new reputation, not fearless, but unwilling to let fear decide who deserved dignity. One evening, Sithra and Elias stood beneath the observation dome again. Stars drifted past in quiet beauty. "I never imagined this," she said. "Neither did most of the galaxy," Elias replied. She turned to him. "What happens next?" He smiled faintly. "Next is always the hardest part, living with the change." She considered that, then nodded. "I think I am ready." The galaxy did not change all at once. It changed the way stone changes underwater, slowly, quietly, shaped by constant contact rather than force. Sithra learned this over time. The space around her on the concourse continued to shrink, not because her presence weakened, but because others grew stronger. Some still could not come close. Some never would, but many tried, and that effort mattered. Humans remained at the center of it, always present, always steady. They did not demand bravery from others. They offered patience instead. Sithra became more than a symbol. She became a voice. The council invited her again, this time not as a subject of debate, but as a participant. Her seat was placed beside Elia's without barriers between them. That detail alone carried meaning. When she spoke, the chamber listened. "I do not ask you to stop being afraid," she said. "Fear is natural. I ask only that you do not let it erase us." No one argued with that. The Kellen were slowly reintroduced to galactic records, not as warnings, as contributors, explorers, navigators, guides through unstable regions of space where fear once ruled. Human engineers worked with Kellen scientists, developing systems that allowed other species to remain calm in their presence for longer periods. Not perfect solutions, but progress. Sithra traveled for the first time, not alone, never alone. She visited stations that once would have denied her entry. Some doors stayed closed. Many opened just a little. That was enough. On one station, a child from a small mammalian species approached her with shaking hands and wide eyes. Humans stood nearby, watching but not interfering. "I'm scared," the child said honestly. Sithra lowered herself carefully, meeting the child at eye level. "So am I sometimes." The child blinked, surprised, then smiled. Moments like that spread quietly across the stars. The sanctions against humanity weakened over time, not because humans demanded it, but because others realized isolation was a tool that lost power when used unjustly. Trade resumed. Dialogues reopened. History began to rewrite itself. The story told across the galaxy changed. It was no longer about a terrifying alien woman and the reckless human who ignored warnings. It became a story about a species that refused to let fear define morality. Elias never called himself a hero. He continued his work, moving from place to place, always where things were uncomfortable, always where someone needed to not be alone. One evening, years later, he stood with Sithra on a quiet platform overlooking open space. Ships moved gently in the distance. Life continued. "You changed everything," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, you did. I just stayed." She considered that. "Most species believe courage means the absence of fear." Elias smiled. "Humans learned a long time ago that courage is what you do while fear is watching." Sithra looked out at the stars. They no longer felt distant. They felt reachable. The galaxy would never be free of fear, but it had learned something vital. Fear could warn, fear could protect, but fear would never again decide who deserved to be seen. And humanity, once new and uncertain among the stars, earned its place not through strength or conquest, but through the simple, stubborn act of walking forward when everyone else stepped back.